The wheels of the campervan hummed against the wet asphalt, a steady, low vibration that felt less like a machine and more like a heartbeat. We were deep in the Japanese Alps, winding our way through the Gifu prefecture, where the mountains rise up like sleeping giants covered in a thick blanket of ancient cedar trees. It was that specific time of evening when the world loses its hard edges. The sky wasn't quite black yet. It was a deep-bruised indigo, heavy with clouds that had been weeping rain since the early morning. The rain here is different. It doesn't just fall. It seems to hang in the air. A mist that clings to the windshield and softens the glow of the headlights. Inside the van, the heater was working quietly, pushing warm air against my ankles. It was a small space, a tiny mobile home, no bigger than a walk-in closet, but tonight, surrounded by the vast, wet wilderness, it felt like a castle. The dashboard glowed with soft green lights, and the windshield wipers kept their hypnotic tempo. Swish, pause, swish. Each sweep cleared away the beads of water, revealing the glistening road ahead for just a second before the rain reclaimed it. We passed through a small, sleepy village. In the rain, the traditional tile roofs of the houses shone like polished obsidian. The streets were empty. The only sign of life was a solitary vending machine standing by the side of the road, its bright white light cutting through the fog, offering hot coffee and tea to ghosts that weren't there. And then, just as quickly as it appeared, the village was gone, swallowed by the rear-view mirror, replaced once again by the towering walls of the forests. The GPS chimed softly, a gentle digital sound indicating that we had arrived. A Michi-no-Eki, Roadside Station. In Japan, these are the sanctuaries for the weary. I turned the wheel, the tires crunching satisfyingly over wet gravel as I pulled away from the main road. I found a spot in the far corner of the parking lot, backed up against a dense thicket of bamboo that swayed and rustled in the wind. I shifted the gear into park and turned the key. The engine died. The vibration stopped, and suddenly, the world changed. Without the hum of the motor, the sound of the rain took over completely. It was louder now, an encompassing drumbeat on the metal roof above. Tap, dash, tap, dash, tap. Drum. It was a chaotic yet perfect rhythm. Nature's own white noise machine. It felt as though the van was a submarine, submerged deep underwater, safe from the pressure of the outside world. I unbuckled my seatbelt, the click echoing in the small cabin. I moved to the back, my socks sliding on the wooden floor. The first order of business was privacy. I pulled the blackout curtains across the windows. One by one, the gray, rainy world was shut out. With every curtain drawn, the space felt smaller, warmer, and more intimate. I clicked on the fairy lights strung along the ceiling. They bathed the interior in a warm, amber glow, turning the van into a cozy lantern in the dark. The air was damp outside, but inside, it was dry and smelled faintly of the cedarwood paneling and the lingering scent of morning coffee. I filled the small kettle and placed it on the gas stove. The blue flame hissed to life. While the water heated, I prepared the bed. I unrolled the thick duvet, punching the pillows to fluff them up. The bedding was cool to the touch, promising a fresh, crisp sleep. The kettle whistled a low, steamy sound. I poured the water over a bag of roasted green tea. The steam rose in curling ribbons, dancing in the amber light, carrying the earthy, toasted aroma of the tea leaves. I sat on the edge of the bed, wrapping my hands around the hot ceramic mug, letting the warmth seep into my palms and travel up my arms. I took a sip. It was hot and grounding. Outside, a gust of wind shook the bamboo, and a fresh wave of heavier rain lashed against the side of the van. But it couldn't reach me. I was separated from the storm by steel and glass and insulation. The worse the weather got outside, the cozier it felt inside. I finished the tea and set the mug in the sink. I turned off the amber lights, plunging the van into darkness, save for a tiny sliver of moonlight trying to push through the rain clouds. I crawled under the duvet, pulling it all the way up to my chin. My body sank into the mattress. The weight of the day, the miles driven, the focus on the road, it all began to dissolve. My muscles loosened. My breathing slowed, syncing with the rhythm of the rain on the roof. Lying there in the dark, I listened. The rain sounded like thousands of tiny fingers tapping a lullaby on the roof. It was a sound of cleansing, a sound of safety. I imagined the water running down the sides of the van, washing away the dust of the highway, flowing into the earth, feeding the roots of the bamboo. My eyes grew heavy. The distinction between the sound of the rain and the sound of my own breath began to blur. The van was a cradle, rocking gently in the wind. I was drifting, floating on a sea of relaxation, anchored in this quiet corner of Japan. The road would be there tomorrow. The journey would continue, but for now, there was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. Just the rain. Just the warmth. Just asleep. But sleep, like the road, is rarely a straight line. It comes in waves. Time passed. I don't know how much. It might have been 20 minutes. It might have been 2 hours. I floated in that soft, gray space between being awake and being asleep. The rain outside had shifted its tone again. The heavy drumming had softened into a gentle, consistent hiss, like the sound of static on an old radio. I stirred beneath the duvet. The air inside the van had cooled down. The heat from the engine had finally dissipated, leaving a crisp freshness that you only find in the mountains. I pulled the blanket up higher, tucking it tighter around my shoulders. The contrast was delicious, the cold tip of my nose against the warm, lavender-scented fabric of the pillow. I opened my eyes, just a slit. The darkness inside the van was absolute, except for that one tiny gap in the curtains I had left open. I felt a sudden, gentle urge to see the world one last time before succumbing completely to the night moving slowly. Trying not to break the spell of relaxation, I sat up on one elbow. I reached out and peeled back the edge of the blackout curtain. The window was cold against my fingertips. Condensation had formed on the glass, blurring the world outside. I wiped a small circle with the side of my hand. I looked out. The storm had passed its peak. The parking lot was a glistening mirror of wet asphalt, reflecting the pale, silver light of the moon, which was fighting its way through the breaking clouds. The bamboo thicket behind the van was still dancing, heavy with water, bowing low in reverence to the night, and then movement near the edge of the forest, where the civilized pavement met the wild grass. A shape moved. A fox. A Japanese its coat was dark and wet, its tail a brush of copper even in the moonlight. It stopped. It turned its head toward the van. For a moment, we were two travelers pausing in the same storm. It didn't look scared. It just looked ... present. Then, with a flicker of motion, it vanished back into the cedar trees, returning to the spirit of the forest. I let the curtain fall back into place. Click! I lay back down, the image of the silent fox staying with me. It was a reminder that even in this isolation, I wasn't truly alone. The mountain was alive around me. Dark. I settled back into the warmth, finding that perfect groove in the mattress. My mind began to wander, not to the worries of tomorrow, but to the memories of the drive that brought me here. I replayed the day in my head, but slower. I remembered the hot spring, the onsen I had visited earlier that afternoon. I closed my eyes and could almost feel the water again. I imagined the steam rising off the outdoor bath, curling up into the cold air. I remembered the smell of the sulfur and the wet stone. I remembered the feeling of weightlessness as I floated in the hot water, the rain falling gently on my face, cooling my skin while the water warmed my bones. That heat was still with me now, stored deep in my muscles. My focus shifted back to the sounds of the van. When you live in a van, the vehicle becomes a living thing. I listened to its little noises. The faint tick, tick, tick of the metal cooling down. The almost inaudible hum of the small refrigerator under the counter. These were the sounds of a functioning home. They meant that the batteries were charged, that the food was cold, that the shelter was holding. I took a deep breath. The air inside the cabin had settled. It was still. My thoughts drifted further, leaving the van entirely. I imagined the road ahead for tomorrow. Not the traffic or the navigation, but the scenery. I pictured the morning mist rising off the rice paddies. I pictured the sun breaking over the peaks of the Japanese Alps, turning the gray world into gold and green. I could almost smell the coffee I would brew in the morning. I could hear the whistle of the kettle again. But that was for tomorrow. Now. My body felt heavy, as if I were sinking through the mattress, down through the floor of the van, and rooting myself into the earth beneath. The rain picked up again, hoosed slightly, a gentle surge. She It was washing over the roof, sealing me. My breathing deepened. In 1, 2, 3 out. 1, 2, 3. The barrier between my thoughts and my dreams began to dissolve. The sound of the rain became the sound of a river, then the sound of wind in the trees, then nothing at all, just a soft, comforting vibration. The fox in the woods was sleeping. The trees were sleeping. The road was sleeping. And finally, so was I. Drifting. Deeper. And deeper into the quiet, rainy night. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your night. May you find deep peace and restful sleep. Wishing you the sweetest dreams. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.